Another beautiful day. It's a Wednesday. Today we are welcoming you on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast and of course the University Management. It is the public lecture as part of the series for this year's ceremony, and we're talking about the first Research and Innovation Week, 9th Research Awards and Grants ceremony. Today we shall be listening to a lecture on the topic Funding of Research for Sustainable Development in Ghana, the role of the African Research Universities Alliance, universities and regional bodies. And so we want to thank all of you for your presence here. My name is Mary Ama Bawa. I'll be your MC for the day. We want to begin on a note of prayer. It's my pleasure to welcome Reverend Dr. Patrick Kwampa to lead us to do this. Please, with a hand of applause, humbly, let's welcome him.
If we could rise as an honor to God, even as we take the opening prayer. We are praying. Gracious God, we thank you for yesterday's discussions. We thank and adore you for how far you've brought us. We commit today's activity, the public lecture, into your hands. We ask for your presence and leading. Grant us a fruitful program. This we pray in the name of Christ Jesus our Lord with thanksgiving. Amen. Shall we take our seats?
Reverend Professor Kwampa, thank you very much for leading us to do this. I will do a few acknowledgements as prelude to this public lecture, and then at the right time we'll do the entire acknowledgement for the day. On the high table, we have Mr. Gideon Abikwe, Esquire, the Registrar of the University of Cape Coast. Please help me acknowledge him. We have Professor Isaac Gallion, the former Provost of Code. Please, a warm acknowledgement for him. We also have Professor John Nelson Boa, former Provost UCC. A warm welcome for him. I'm not done on the high table yet, but this is a deliberate escape. We're going to hold on briefly. We'll take the welcome address by the Director of Drake, Professor David Tay Duku. Help me welcome him, please.
Registrar Mr. Gideon Enoch Abekwe, former Pro-Vice Chancellor Professor Nelson Boa, distinguished guest speaker for today, Professor Emeritus Ernest Aryeetey, Professor Isaac Gallion, former Provost College of Distance Education, former Pro-Vice Chancellors, if there are any present here, Provost of Colleges, former Provost of Colleges, if there are any here, Deans, Directors, Heads of Department, and other duty bearers, distinguished invited guests from sister universities. I can see a rep from KNUST here, Technical University, Takrady, and others. Faculty, students, the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Oh, good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here again today. We started on Monday, we were here yesterday, and I'm very grateful to you that you've also made it to this auditorium this morning. I would like to warmly welcome you all to this important public lecture. It is a pleasure to see many of you gathered here today, reflecting the shared commitment we have to advancing research innovation, especially in the context of sustainable development. Today is the third day of the week-long event, which is the first Research and Innovation Week and the 9th Research Awards and Grant Ceremony. This event has been interpaced with exhibition of research and innovation from faculty, panel discussions, as we had yesterday. Today we'll have public lecture. Tomorrow there will be a speech delivered on the topic, and we'll have award ceremony. Tomorrow we will honor best researchers, and we will give research support grant to deserving grantees and awardees. This week serves as an important platform where we showcase not only the incredible research and ideas coming out of this university, but also our commitment to making meaningful contribution to Ghana, Africa, and the world. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, research and innovation play a fundamental role in addressing the challenges our societies face, from climate change and public health to poverty and to social injustice. To achieve this, sustainable funding is essential. The theme for this year's celebration, Funding Research and Innovation for Sustainable Development, the role of state and non-state actors, speaks to one of the most pressing and complex challenges we face as researchers and innovators. It calls on us to confront not only the importance of sustainable development, but also the practical, often challenging reality of funding the work that is essential to achieve it. For our university and other institutions across the continent of Africa, sustainable development is not merely a global priority, it is a local necessity. In Ghana and much of sub-Saharan Africa, we are confronted with the urgent issues such as climate change, health inequalities, educational gap, and economic vulnerabilities. These are not abstract concerns. They are real, lived experiences that impact millions of lives. In tackling these issues, we must not only advance knowledge, but also turn them into action. However, the hard truth is that without adequate and sustained funding, even the most groundbreaking research remains nothing more than a potential. The theme for today's lecture is Funding Research and Innovation for Sustainable Development in Ghana, the role of ARUA and other funding bodies. This lecture focuses on exploring how universities, regional bodies like the African Research Universities Alliance, ARUA, and other stakeholders can collaborate to generate funding for research and innovation for sustainable development. Universities have always been the bedrock of knowledge generation, but today's rapidly evolving global landscape, economic challenges our role to include not only shaping solutions that directly impact the communities we serve, but also sourcing for funding to accomplish these important roles. ARUA, in particular, has been instrumental in fostering partnership that leverage African resources and knowledge to address local and global challenges. Collaboration between universities and regional bodies enables us to drive innovation, share best practices, and pool resources together to ensure that the research we conduct has the maximum possible impact. Today's discussion will provide insight into the ways we can further strengthen this partnership and tap into the opportunities available for sustainable funding. I believe the knowledge which will be shared here today will inspire new ideas and strategies to ensure that we collaborate in a way that will benefit our institutions and indeed our continent and the world. We are very privileged to have a very distinguished scholar and an outstanding university administrator to share with us his depth of experience. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the university, I would like to express our gratitude to our distinguished speaker, our guests who have traveled from far and near, all of you participants for honoring our invitation. We know the week has been very tiring, and last week we were here also from Monday to Friday for our International Partnership Week, so we deeply acknowledge your sacrifices to be here again this morning. Let us all reflect and explore how we can collectively mobilize researches to engage in researches and innovation, which will contribute to sustainable development in Ghana and Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish all of us a very fruitful and enlightening lecture. Thank you.
Professor Tvucc, thank you very much for your warm welcome address. It's my pleasure to invite the chair for today's function in the person of Professor Isaac Kojo Gallion. Professor Gallion is a professor of plant physiology at the University of Cape Coast with more than 2 decades experience in teaching and research. He served as the provost of the College of Distance Education Code at the University of Cape Coast for 6 years, where he focused on enhancing access to tertiary education through distance learning and promoted the integration of ICT to support students in remote regions. His leadership at Code was recognized for expanding educational opportunities across Ghana, especially through innovative approaches in distance education delivery. Professor Gallion has also served as a Dean of the Student of Biological Sciences and as head of department here at the University of Cape Coast. He has mentored several researchers and scholars over the years, and he is hailed as the father for many young scholars. It's my privilege and honor to welcome him to the podium to deliver his acceptance remarks. Please, let's give him a warm welcome as he takes the podium.
Thank you, Amma, for the instruction. Director of Tvucc, may I stand on the protocol already established? Prof. Aryeetey's visit today is the second coming to the Tvucc program. He has been to UCC a number of times, but for Tvucc, today is the second coming. The first time he came, he talked about research, how we can go about research funding, and today he's coming to emphasize on that. I don't know how we implemented the ideas he gave us the last time, but he has always been supportive of UCC. He has been the type of academic that I admire. He does not hide secrets. It's like in the university lecture hall. If we all get first class, we get first class. We all pass, we pass. And so Aryeetey is somebody who is free. He wants to encourage people to conduct research for sustainable development. And if you listen to his speeches, you will realize that he's somebody who wants inclusive research and he does not discriminate. If he were the discriminating type, Prof. Aryeetey would have stayed in Legon to help Legon too, especially now that we here are boasting that we have been West Africa #1 and Ghana #1 for 4 consecutive years. But it is through his tutelage and the advice he gives us that we have been able to do that. Thank you. As the poster indicates, and the topic he's coming to talk on, again, it is about funding research for sustainable development in Ghana and the role of universities, the Africa Research Universities Alliance, and national funding bodies. Having been former General Secretary of ARUA, we couldn't have picked anybody better to present this one. So he gives us the perspective, and also a Vice Chancellor. Those of us who have been to Legon before his time, and then after his time, we would have seen the development that he brought there. During his time, several research centers were established, including the Biotech Center. I'm used to that one, so I want to talk about that. And so Aryeetey's visit today should further encourage us with the points and ideas he will give us to reshape our research and direct our focus to conduct research that will lead to sustainable development in Ghana. And I think the last time Prof. Japan was here, he asked UCC, what is our niche in research? As the premier university of education, what have we done to shape education in this country? Now, the $1 million or £1 million question is Galamsey issue. And Galamsey cuts across science and humanities. What are we doing? I'm sure that after Prof. Aryeetey has given us some tidbits, we should analyze his speech related to the problems surrounding us, especially our catchment area, and then couch some research topics that will involve everybody so that we can help Mother Ghana to develop sustainably. On this note, I accept to chair the function. Thank you.
Professor Gallion, thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to listen to the lecture, the reason why we are here. Before we do that, permit me to do a brief profile of our guest lecturer. Professor Ernest Aryeetey is an emeritus Professor Ernest Aryeetey is an emeritus professor of development economics at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, University of Ghana. Until July 2024, he was the Secretary General of the African Research Universities Alliance, ARUA, a network of 20 of Africa's flagship universities. He is a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana and was also previously Director of ISE. Professor Aryeetey was the first director of the Africa Growth Initiative of Brookings Institution, Washington, D.C. He has held academic appointment at the School of Oriental and African Studies, London, Yale University, and Swarthmore College in the US at various points in time. Professor Aryeetey was a member of the Governing Council of the United Nations University from 2016 to 2019 and was also previously chairman of the advisory board of the United Nations University World Institute for Development Economics Research. He is currently the board chairman of the African Economic Research Consortium. He was, until December 2021, the board chairman of the African Economic Research. He was, until 2021, the board chairman of the Stanbic Bank Ghana Limited. He holds honorary degrees from the University of Sussex, UK, Lund University, Sweden, Stellenbosch University, South Africa, University of Ghana, Legon, University of Health and Allied Sciences, Applied Sciences, Ghana, and University of Glasgow, UK. One of Prof. Aryeetey's strategic priorities as Vice-Chancellor at the University of Ghana was to develop the university into a research-intensive institution that supports structural transformation in Africa. As Arua Secretary General, his major preoccupation was to show that collaboration was key in making African universities more competitive globally while remaining relevant to their communities. Professor Aryeetey is also a prolific author with numerous publications in academic journals and contributions to books on African economic integration and reform. His scholarship not only addresses the theoretical aspect of economic policy, but also provides practical insights that influence policy decisions across the continent. Through his work, he has become a key figure in African economic policy, leveraging his expertise to foster a more inclusive and robust economic landscape across the region. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with a standing ovation and a hand of applause, help me, a standing ovation, a hand of applause, help me welcome our special guest of honor to deliver this year's public lecture on funding of research for sustainable development in Ghana, the role of Arua, universities, and regional bodies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. As I listened to the profile of myself being read, I was thinking, I was wondering whether you're talking about somebody else or she made it sound like I don't know what to say. The way they describe celebrities, when you go to Hollywood and they have these shows and they are, but anyway, thank you very much. This is what makes me always very happy to come to UCC, University of what? Something and choice. What is it? University of competitive choice, yes. Now you deserve it. Now you deserve it. So, a few weeks ago, I received an invitation from Professor Tvucc to come and join you this week in discussing funding research for sustainable development in Ghana. I had just retired from Arua and was looking forward to resting, not doing anything. But the problem these days is when people hear that you have retired, they assume you don't have anything to do. And or they think you are bored, so they should help you not to kill the boredom, you know. Yesterday I was at GTech conference doing something very similar, and I told them the same thing, that I was there because they are trying to help me. I don't know if you know Prof. Wandari. Yes, Gordon invited me, and in his mind, oh, this man is this old man. Let me see how I can help him to stay alive. You know. So Prof. Doku thinks the same. He wants me to be active so I don't get bored. Anyway, it's a nice way of killing boredom. I'm enjoying it. It helps me to think in a more structured way about some of the things I was doing. When you're doing things, you don't get the chance to reflect on them and their likely impact. By being introduced to these kinds of events, you are more or less obliged to do a more deeper thinking of these subjects. So I thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to the discussions that we will have. In my talk today, is there something I need to point this to? Okay. My talk today, I will discuss, I'll provide a bit of background, and then I'll discuss various inequities in the global funding landscape, and I'll talk about what we did or are still doing at Arua, and then I will look at what possibilities there are for institutions in Ghana, including UCC, to change the landscape. So that's really what I intend to do this morning. So, by way of background and some context, we often think about how governments in Africa should be doing more and more for research. Everybody knows that in Africa, governments spend very little money on research. It's not new. It's been going on, apart from South Africa, where they do have the National Research Foundation, that is a very, very active one. Hardly any government in Africa pays much attention to research. The interesting comparison that one can think about between Africa and the rest of the world is that in most of the world, the research that is used to develop industry, the research that is used to enhance society, the research that is used to drive government policy, is done through a combination of what universities do, other privately owned research entities do, likely owned by industry, and a few more by NGOs. In Africa, more than 90% of the research that is done here comes from universities. That's the difference. Elsewhere, you have pharmaceutical companies, you have hospitals, you have chemical entities, you have engineering firms that do a lot of research supported by universities. In Africa, more than 90% of the research is done by universities. And so you would expect, who is play with mine? You would expect that the research done by universities will receive a lot more attention than it does. But African governments don't. And they have a reason that they always give. They say the research that we do is not practical. The research that we do is not relevant to societal development. The research that we do does not often help anybody, whether it's in agriculture or in health or in the social sciences. That's the main excuse that African governments have given. even at the AU level, they say the same thing, that our research is not relevant. And if you provoke them enough, they will say the research is not rigorous enough. So they compare your research, the research that you are doing in seed multiplication, or research that you are doing on vaccines and so on, is not rigorous enough compared to the research done in Europe and other places. And so what's the point in putting money into you? That explains why when they do national budgets, even in consideration of what they give to higher education institutions, you find that there's almost zero for research because they don't see. That is exactly what should provoke us also to think about how to change the story and doing research that meaningfully contributes to the global knowledge generation. Research that our farmers can see is useful. Research that sick people going to hospitals can see helps them. There are many Ghanaians who, when they need some treatment for various diseases, are skeptical about the likelihood of health scientists, medical professionals, being able to understand what's going on and properly give them the healing that they need. We have a system where the link between research and extension services in agriculture is so weak that a lot of the research that our agricultural scientists do does not get taken up anywhere. And so nobody knows about them. Today, there are many agronomists in this country, many seed experts, many plant breeders that have done a lot of work over the past 30 years that nobody really knows about and nobody cares about, but which, if applied properly, can change the face of agriculture in this country and other places. And so we have an obligation as universities to do the type of research that will change lives for people. Interestingly, even though we are accused of not doing enough good research, things are beginning to change. Things are beginning to change. And UCC is a good example of how things are beginning to change. Yeah. If you look at this, you will find that a growing number of academics in leading research-intensive public universities today have a PhD. Today, they have a PhD. When I first came to Legon, only about 43% of the lecturers had PhDs. In Cape Coast, it was even less, around 30% had PhDs. Today, almost everybody at Legon has a PhD. Today, Legon has, I think, around 73%. Cape Coast, you are around how many percent? Yeah, I should know, because I forced you to develop the figures. I think Cape Coast is around 60% thereabouts. So, more than 60%. All right. So things are changing, you see. And as you get these PhDs, it means also that they are being trained to do research. PhD, so the PhD is not for the fun of it. It's not for the title. It's not for the all the encomiums that go with being called doctor. PhD, properly done, is the only formal way to train people to do research. And so you can't have a research-intensive universities where your researchers don't have a PhD. Yes, they'll be able to do something, but they are not likely to compete with the best in the world who have been trained to do research. So I get worried when I see universities where the PhD becomes a status symbol. It is something to be used. So if you have a PhD and then you're publishing, you're not doing research, what they use? You know, what they use? There's an improved position for African universities in the global rankings. So today, what, you are number 1 in Ghana, you are number 1 in West Africa, you are number 7 in Africa, you are happy. Eh? Eh? Every time your VC gives a speech, then you tell the whole world. Eh? It's good. So getting there is good. Staying there, Mr. Prof. Doku, I'm talking to you. Eh? Getting there is good, but staying there is even more important, right? Staying there. And it's very, very difficult to stay there. Why? Because everybody sees you. Say, but how did they get there? What did they do that we haven't done? So they are also trying to catch up. If you lose your guard, they will come and pass you. It's very easy. So getting there is, it's like a boxer who trains to win a particular tournament. And then you win and you're the world champion. Now everybody wants to beat you. And everybody has a different style. So you got to adapt to everybody in order to survive. So that's the beauty of these rankings. There are some who don't believe in rankings. And there are some who swear by rankings. I don't belong to either group. I know that if, as a vice chancellor, you devote all your energies to rankings, you'll be wasting your time. You'll be able to do something that people will clap for you, but there'll be something else you'll be losing in your university. So it's a question of how do you get the balance? How do you get the balance right? How do you use the process of developing higher rankings embedded in the structure of the university? So it's not only a group, a small group of scientists who are pushing the thing up, but it is in such a manner that everybody contributes to the rise of the university in the rankings. So the next point I make is that because of the improvements that we've seen in the performance of universities, in the performance of African researchers, in terms of publication, being published in the high-impact journals and so on, there's a tendency for us to think that maybe the West is over. But I always say that there are not many UCCs in Africa. There are not many universities that have made that breakthrough within the last 2 decades. There are not many. And so there are things that we need to reflect on, the fact that there are very few universities that are in these global rankings. Even though we talk about Africa rising in these things, it's important to identify the fact that most of that progress comes from South Africa. So it is, and it's not just all the South African universities. There are 4 of them. There are only 4 that are driving what we see as the massive changes occurring in Africa. This will be UCT, Stellenbosch, Wits, and Pretoria, and to some extent, maybe University of Johannesburg. These are the 5, and some partly also KwaZulu-Natal, that are driving these changes in Africa. So you hear that Africans are doing much better, it's because these 6 universities are doing quite well, plus UCC. So, even though we are improving, we still provide less than 3% of the global scientific publications, and only about 0.3% of global research and development, and 0.5% of all patent applications. These are very low. We are happy with the 3% because about 8 years ago, we were less than 1%. About 8 years ago, we were less than 1% of the scientific publications. Our expenditure on research and development is 0.45% of GDP, which is much lower than the global average of 1.7% of GDP. The African Union has set a target of 1% of GDP for all of us. So we are below that for most countries. It's only South Africa that has gone way above that. So you reap what you sow. If you are not investing in research and development, you cannot expect to be a global leader. You can compare our situation in the bottom left-hand corner to the situation in other parts of the world. So you see quite clearly that in North America, they do have quite a number of researchers, and then they spend a lot of money on research, and so they get the results that they get. We are not spending much, and so we don't have many people doing research, and we are also not getting enough out of the research. Our farmers don't benefit from the research that we do. And even when we do the research, we have difficulty making them appreciate the context of the research and the applicability of the research that we do. There are a number of issues in this context also. We have some of the lowest numbers of researchers per million inhabitants. We provided numbers, there are 94 per million inhabitants in 2021, whereas there are 4,000 per million inhabitants in North America and Western Europe. There are gender gaps, which we know very well. Women have been far less pronounced in the research environment. It's changing, but very slowly. Equally worrying has been inability to retain the talent, the brain drain. The brain drain is something that obviously requires some attention from all of us. There are aspects of the brain drain that are quite worrying, and there are other aspects that allow us to reflect a lot more keenly on how we can work with our brethren in the diaspora. So if, as a university, we spend a lot of money giving scholarships to young people to go outside and do PhD or do masters and come back and they don't return, does it serve to motivate you to do more of it? I always say that in my own experience, things are changing. I remember when I left Legon in 1978, I finished Legon. There were quite a number of people from my peers who received scholarships, either from the university or from the Ghana government or from some NGO to go out. I was lucky to get a scholarship from the German government, so that's how I ended up in Germany. But many were those who were sponsored by the university to go out and do PhD and come back and be lecturers. There's one thing I'm sure of, that of my cohort that went out, those of us who returned were less than 10%. Less than 10%. Everybody that I knew as my, either a few years ahead of me or a few years behind me, who went out to do a PhD in economics, there are only 2 of us who came back to Ghana. The rest disappeared and were in the diaspora, were in the World Bank or UNDP or South Africa or somewhere, you know. So when you have that kind of situation, you're a vice chancellor, you're going to struggle for a few dollars for, will you give it to people to go and do PhD? That's a question that every vice chancellor will have to reflect on. But things are changing. It's changing in the sense that in the last few years, I've seen many Ghanaians living in the US, in the UK, in Europe, who have acquired a PhD without any sponsorship from a Ghanaian university, who are applying to come back to a Ghanaian university. So that's a new trend that we need to think about. What does it mean? Today, In fact, a month ago, I was in Switzerland for a meeting, and at the meeting, I met with Ghanaian students doing their PhDs, and they were all harassing me about how can we find work when we hear that these times are changing. Today, here you are doing PhD in geography in Switzerland, and you are worried that when you go to Ghana, you will not find a job. Initially, I thought they were exaggerating this difficulty. Since returning, I've spoken to a few vice chancellors to see if they would have places for Ghanaians with PhD here. They're all quite skeptical. I'm quite sure the same thing here. So we need to think a lot more. Yes, we need PhDs. How do we prepare them? How do we create space for them, not just to return, but to flourish in this new environment, to be able to do the kind of research that they were doing in Switzerland or Sweden or wherever they may find themselves. That's something that we all need to think about. So we are doing research that governments, not necessarily Ghana, but most of Africa, will not find relevant, will not find interesting, will not find exciting. The applicability of it is lost on them. What are things? There are a number of things that they want us to do. They will say the things that you are doing are not reflected by what the SDGs require. That's why I'm happy that your conference this year is focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals, or the sustainability of development. So, are we interested in poverty and inequality? Are we interested in the environment? Are we interested in sustainable cities and communities? These are all things embedded in the SDGs. How many of us, when we are thinking about what research to do, will think about the SDGs? I highlight these because you are thinking about funding for sustainable development. If you are likely to do research in these areas, it becomes a lot easier to find the money. It becomes a lot easier to find the money. 87% of all research funding coming to African universities is going to the health sciences, because it is fairly easy to show how research into various infections or various non-communicable diseases can lead to high impact on households. It's fairly easy. And so you get money from Gates Foundation, you get money from MasterCard, you get money from Carnegie, you get money from Mellon, you get money from the World Bank, from NIH, and so on. It's 87%. That's so small, which means that the rest of us who are not in the health area have to compete, have to be a lot more aggressive in order to find funding. If you are in engineering, or you are in agriculture, you are in the social sciences, you've got to be a lot more aggressive. It means, of course, work on the environment. It's not only for health scientists, it's not only for geographers, it's not only for soil scientists or for chemists. No. It means we are seeing new opportunities for people to work across disciplines. If you want to do a good project on the environment and you are a soil scientist, the likelihood that you will find the money to do the project at the scale that you are looking at will be much more reduced if you work alone. If, on the other hand, you had a team from different backgrounds, including social scientists, including environmental scientists, including some natural scientists, you are much more likely to win a large grant. And that's the way we've got to think about research moving forward. Ghana spends 1.2% of GDP on tertiary education, and out of this, only a small part, less than 10% of that, is going into research. So we've got to do something about it. We haven't been able to articulate exactly what we need to do in order to improve the situation. What we've seen making a big impact is how institutions like UCC are contributing. So we talked about your impressive improvements. We talked about all the questions that remain, how aligned are what you are doing with the SDGs, how much of your IGF is going into these areas. You know, one of the things I remarked upon this morning when I met with the former Provost, our chair, is the fact that every time I come here, I see new buildings. And it's very, very impressive. It's very, very impressive. It means your IGF is working for you. But as you know, man shall not live by buildings alone. How much of your IGF are you putting into research? It's a question that how much of your IGF are you putting into research? Let me digress here and talk about one of the things I tried to do at the University of Ghana some more than 10 years ago, which in my view was a very, very good thing, and I'm quite sure. I created out of nothing centers of excellence that will be funded from our own IGF, and also that they will be empowered then to go out and look for additional funding. So I created 4, and I was thinking about units. I was thinking about, so you have a science and then you have non-science disciplines. You've got to have something that attracts everybody. So I created one center for climate change. And I put in that center people from different backgrounds. The whole idea was for them to work in an interdisciplinary manner. So there were social scientists there were natural scientists there were people from the health sciences, all there. And it was for climate change. Basically, what kind of research should they be doing in order to influence the Ghana government's policies on climate change? The understanding being that if we were able to put, the initial seed capital given was 2.5 million cedis. That was the initial this. Then they will be able to mobilize additional resources from various applications that they will submit around the world. We did a similar thing for food security. And in the food security, what it meant was having our plant breeders, agricultural economists, soil scientists, and so on, work together in order to do the type of research, and again, give them 2.5 million cedis to start, like startup capital. You know, we did a similar thing for vaccines. At that time, I have seen all around the world people that were interested in malaria vaccines. Most of them came from the global north. They came from places like London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, Oxford University, what do you call it? What do you call this university in the US? Johns Hopkins. You know, so these were the places, and then there are some Australians and some South Africans. But in my view, people who were doing malaria vaccine research from the global north, they all had a certain interest. They were seeking to become well-known globally as leading scholars in these areas. And as soon as they achieved that status, after publishing in the Lancet or the New England Medical Journal, they moved away from it to other things that were more exciting at the time. And because nobody stayed with malaria vaccine research for a long period, that's why we're struggling. And even the Africans, you know, the Africans at Noguchi or wherever you could find them, what was their role? So somebody at Oxford develops some vaccines, they want to do clinical trials, then they come to Noguchi, they pay you a few $1,000 and everybody's happy. You spend all your time doing these clinical trials, you publish, you get promoted, you become professor so-and-so, and then you move on. But you are never going to solve the problems. You are going to be We are going to produce many professors. We are going to publish in high-impact journals, but we will not solve the problem of malaria because it is something that has been by default reflected only in a time context. So I thought by having a center where even if you got promoted and you moved on, there will be other people in the system. So you'll be producing many people doing PhD in malaria vaccine research. And competition amongst these many young people will help you to find that. A lot of what we see as inventions around the world are born out of competition. It's born out of scientists competing with their next door neighbors. If there's no competition, there will be no inventions. So we've got to think about the culture around the science that we do. How do we foster good collaboration? How do we foster good competition, healthy competition? It is those things that will lead to our finding the solutions. So over to you, young men at UCC, how do you do that? The situation is such that while you are thinking about putting more money into research as a vice chancellor, you are also under pressure from GTech and from the government of Ghana to increase your numbers. There's free SHS. There are many young people coming out. You need to find places for them in universities. So you got to, how do you balance it? How do you ensure that you can deal with these things? You are doing this at a time that you are also not allowed to increase your fees. You are doing this at a time when people at in the ministries want to share the money you have with you, and so on. It is not at all an easy thing to do, but you've got to find a way of doing it. The average university in Ghana doesn't have a solid structure for managing research. I'm very happy that since we last met about these things, UCC has really developed the infrastructure for doing or managing research. I'm quite happy with what you are doing so far. I say I'm happy because I've seen the data that you provided in terms of output, the throughput of graduate students, the type of lecturers and researchers that you have. So I've seen all of that. And it shows steady improvement compared to me. So that's why I'm optimistic that if you continue along that path, you will be able to. The problem that many of us face is as we do our research, as we go up, I gave the example of malaria research, so all these clinical trials, how many of them were initiated by Ghanaians? Not many. But somebody has gone and gotten money from Gates and he wants to come and do trials here and has invited you to join. The questions that are being asked are not questions originating from you. And it applies to many of the other things that we do. So the funding landscape is such that all the lead research questions are coming from our partners elsewhere. How do we change that to ensure that we, the Africans, are doing research that reflects our own interests and so on? That's how Arua came in. So Arua was created in 2015. At the time, I was still Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. And the idea was, how do we get African universities to work together to develop the research questions of interest and look for funding together, because if we go alone, we will not be able to get the kind of support that we are looking for. So when we started, we were 15. Legon was the only one from Ghana. Why Legon? no real reason, apart from the fact that they had a two-no vice chancellor who could bulldoze his way through things. So I went to a meeting where they were looking. I said, if you're looking for somebody from Legon, I mean, you don't have any choice. There's only Legon to think about. And of course, they accepted it. And so at the time, if you recall, in 2016, in the Times Higher Education rankings, UG was 7th. So it made sense. So where you are, UG has been there before. So think about the fact that you were able to topple them the same way that tech would like to topple you. And so how do you not become like UG? Think about it. It's not an easy question to think about. So we believed that working together will make a very big difference. The South Africans are far better endowed than the rest of us. But they also want to show leadership. You can't lead if you don't have a following. So how do you work with your lesser endowed brothers and sisters in order to move yourself in? So UCT has been the highest ranked African university since the rankings began. But they have never broken into the top 100. I think the highest they've done is about 120 thereabouts. They would like to be seen as a number 80 or 70 in the world, which is possible, but they do have the structure and they do have the people. I mean, there are people published in some of the best journals in the world, so they can easily be part of the world's best universities. They do realize that by working more with Africa and being seen globally to be African experts, then they will rise. That's why. So what we are doing, everybody has his own calculation. How is it? It's like, okay, let's form a cooperative so that we can work better. Good. But everybody in the cooperative must have his or her own calculations. How does this cooperative benefit me? So what do I bring to the table? And what I bring to the table will be of use to everybody else. And what do I get? What I get must be more than what I bring. My worry for Arua is that many of the sub-Saharan universities come in because they are coming to look for things. And I always say to them, what you get is determined by what you put in. If you don't put in anything, nobody will invite you. If they call meetings and they say, buy your own ticket and come, and you won't go, those who go will take the decision on what they want to do. And then you'll be sitting in campus and say, but they didn't call me. They called you. But in these days, nobody buys tickets for anybody. Your IGF, use some of it to buy your own ticket. That's how the world is changing. So we came together agreeing that collaboration and interdisciplinary work is going to allow us to move faster forward. We established the Centers of Excellence, 13 of them, to reflect our interest in the SDGs. We were very lucky, very early, we got support from UKRI, UK Research and Innovation, that gave us £20 million. And you know, £20 million in 2018 was not small money. And it was possible because the UK government at the time had agreed to this 0.7% of GNI going into development research. So we benefited from that. Arua was formed at the time when the UKRI boss had about £100 million to spend within the next 2 years. And he didn't know how we were going to spend the money. And then he met me at a meeting. And then, so I was a solution to his problems, and he was a solution to my problems. That's how the world works. You must be the solution to somebody's problems, but you must show that you are a solution to his problems. He said to me we are having drinks. I know many of you don't drink beer because you're all good people. You don't drink beer. I like beer. So I was having beer with him, and then he said, Ernest, give me one good reason why I should spend this money on you. I said, well, that's very easy. Buy one, get 15 free. He said, what do you mean by that? I said, if you give me, Arua, money for one institution, there are 15 African universities that will benefit from it. After 2 minutes, he said, that's a very good one. That's how we got the 20 million pounds. You see? So you got to think creatively about how do I take advantage of where I am. Don't see problems, see opportunities. By all means, you use the opportunity to solve your problems. But you got to be you have to be ready. Somebody says, I have 20 million, but I don't know what to do with it. Create a solution for him or her. We have a very strong relationship with the Guild of European Research Universities. Why is that? The European Union in today's world provides the largest structured funding for research. And they do have facilities that are open to us. But they are extremely difficult to access because of the technical requirements that you need to. So the money is there. I don't know if quite recently you saw an article in University World News about all these funds that are not being utilized. They are earmarked for Africa, but the Africans are not coming for the money. We believe that by working with the Guild of European Research-Intensive Universities, we will be able to build a strong collaboration that would allow us easier access. They will train us on how to apply for these grants. We will be putting in proposals that will benefit both Africa and Europe. And remarkably, they bought it, and it's working. It's working in the sense that we have developed out of that clusters of research excellence, what we call in 21 different areas now, where African universities, including UCC, are partnering with European universities. It's my hope that within the next year, they'll be able to apply for more grants. The plan was to push the European Union to develop facilities that were earmarked for Africa in a more open manner. So UCC could apply directly to the European Union. They have a lot more money than MasterCard Foundation. They have a lot more money than Gates Foundation. They have a lot. So there's a lot of money there. And for whatever reason, a large part of it is earmarked for Africa, but the Africans are not showing much interest. You see, why is that? Because the Africans are used to, you are sitting in the office in Cape Coast, and then some young man you knew when you were doing your PhD in Manchester knocks on your door. Hey, hi, Jim. I got this grant, and I'm looking for someone to partner with. Oh, yeah. How much are you going to get? $20,000. Oh, you're so happy. $20,000, you start thinking about the new car you're going to buy, the new SUV that you're going to buy. You know, you buy it, you're happy, the money is finished. After the money is gone and you've published one piece, then but we become used to that. So we are always sitting there waiting for that young man or young woman to come and call us. The world is changing because they too, we are giving them pressure that instead of giving the money to that young man, give it to the one in Cape Coast and let him come and call and say, look, I'm having this problem. So those young men and women coming to you, the numbers are going to go down because they'll be looking at you to be the leader. We've been fighting for that, and that's what we should pursue. So Arua has worked with all these institutions, Carnegie. Most of Arua's funding for day-to-day running is from Carnegie. We work with the National Research Foundation in South Africa. The Universitas 21 is again another network of universities that want to partner with African universities, especially in the area of graduate training. Arua has this early career researcher program, and it's one that I am thinking about as a strong one for young people who finished their PhD less than 5 years ago, to be able to take advantage of, instead of when they are here, they are teaching a level 100 course with about 1,000 students. They spend all their time marking scripts. Give them a year away to go and stay in Stellenbosch and say, oh, before you come back, publish 2 articles in a good journal, not in some predatory journal. We will pay you. You get your salary from UCC, and then we give you $2,000 every month. We pay your rent. Who pay way up there? You see? So that's one thing that Arua is doing. One of the things that I'm also hoping, even though I've retired, I'm trying to push them to find money for sabbaticals. You know, there are all these old men and women, well, not exactly old, but they are, I mean, these days, if you are in your 50s, you are old, aren't you? So there are all these 50-something-year-olds who have been teaching for more than 20 years. They've been on sabbatical, and in that sabbatical, they were working for Ministry of Food and Agriculture or some NGO. They haven't really had the opportunity to do modern research, you know. So give them a sabbatical leave. Go to Nairobi. We'll pay you your salary from at the university, and then top up while you are in Nairobi. We buy you air ticket to provide you nice accommodation. You can bring your wife and children under 15. So you do your sabbatical there. And hopefully, in that 1 year, that sabbatical that you took, you would have retooled, you would have prepared yourself for your last 10 years before retirement. So that's one of the things that you know, we hope will excite experienced researchers but haven't had the opportunity and so on. So these are some of the things that we are thinking about at Arua. Of course, you know about the 1,000 PhDs. We are still waiting for MasterCard to come in through with a grant, and then we'll do it. Now, as I finish, there are a few things that we need to think about. I talked about the South Africans having the National Research Foundation. We in Ghana have been talking about this for more than 15 years. We haven't been able to do it. Yesterday I was at the GTEC conference, and they were happy to talk about how they were working on it. It's not good enough. And it's important that universities like you put pressure. Put pressure. Any country that does not spend money on research can forget the SDGs. And one argument that I have often made is that without research and innovation, no African country is going to attain any of the SDGs. Because whether it's in the area of food security and health, education, you need to apply new knowledge. New knowledge only comes from research. So if you want to attain the SDGs, but you don't want to put money into research, forget it. So universities need to make that argument and make that forcefully, which would then force them to have the National Research Fund. Once it is in place, it needs to provide money on a sustained, regular basis for the work that you do. You can put in your IGF to support some of the centers that I spoke about earlier, but it will not be enough. And as many more people, as many young people come in with their PhDs and looking for grants to do research, this will become very important. Today, I'm happy to see that UCC has also this African Center of Excellence, the ACE. The ACE, I'm sure, what's the name of the one you have in UCC? Yeah, precisely. It's good that we have it. It's an indirect way of the Ghana government funding research. The Ghana government has literally been forced by the World Bank and its conditionality to put money into research. It wasn't something that the Ghana government and NCT at the time sat down and, oh, how can we, no. The World Bank came in and said, we are going to put this money, will you be able to match it and so on? That's how it came in. We have to change that kind of narrative. We have, as universities, to put pressure. I know these days we've all become politicians. So instead of putting pressure, if you are NDC, you don't go and put pressure. You don't put pressure on the NDC government. When you are MPP, you don't put pressure on MPP government. I tell you, MPP will come and go, NDC will come and go. You always be here. So let's think about how you can put pressure in order to get these things sorted out. Of course, how do we bring in the diaspora is important. How do we work with African philanthropists like Dangote and others to put more money into research? Dangote supports research at Harvard and Yale. Yes, they do have initiatives that they put in there. They are happy to be seen to be benefactors of Harvard and Yale. But what about making them aware that if you put money into UCC, it can benefit your cement industry? That if you put money into UCC, it can benefit your oil industry. It's for us to make that. So when you get a chance to give a talk somewhere, talk about it. Shame them, and then they will respond. So we've got to think about how we work with the industry. So I have talked at length about the need for us to see the work we do as involving a social contract with our communities. Where the work that we do must benefit our society, the farmers, the industrialists, NGOs, everybody must benefit from the work that we do as researchers. This can best be done through high-quality research that is targeting the challenges of society. Today, Galamsey is killing us. Galamsey didn't start last year. They didn't start 2 years ago. What are we? You are nearer the Pra River than I am. And I'm closer to the Densu than you are. What have we done about these immediate problems? Nothing. Some of us talked a little and nobody minded us, and we kept quiet. It's time, it's time that we let our research reflect the problems of our society. There's a huge potential for Africa, even as we talk about lack of resources. If we set up that National Research Fund, it will make a very big difference. And adapting best practices from our peers. So yes, we work with people in the global north. They do things, I mean, a good example is the vaccine that was used to deal with COVID-19, led by scientists from Oxford. But they work closely with scientists in Africa. When the names of institutions, nobody knew that some of the best scientists who did most of the work were in Cape Town. There were even some here in Ghana, at Noguchi, and nobody mentioned them. But we can change all of that narrative. I do hope that you at UCC, as #1 in Ghana, #1 in West Africa, #7 in Africa, will change that narrative. Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with a hand of applause and of course a standing ovation, please let's do this for our very special guest of honor, Emeritus Professor Aryeetey, who has delved into issues that has given us food for thought. Special thank you to all of you. Please take your seat. Take your seat. And as our dignitaries take their seat, it's my pleasure to invite quickly I guess there are some acknowledgements to be done. Would want to do that briefly. We have in our midst, of course, on the high table, Professor Isaac Gallion, who has already been acknowledged, so I'll move from there and then to join you up here to acknowledge some of the dignitaries who have joined us in the course of the lecture. Professor Moses Kojo Egan, Provost College of Cannes, has joined us. Prof, thank you very much. We also have Professor Livingston K. Sam Amwa, former Provost Cannes, UCC. Professor Martins Echo, Provost College of Health and Allied Sciences, UCC. Professor Christine Eduyeboa, Dean Sedo, representing the Provost of the College of Education. Please let's acknowledge her. Professor Angela Akosu, Dean, School for Development Studies. Professor Godwin Awobil, Dean, Faculty of Educational Foundations. Professor Hope Pius Nujo, IEPA, UCC. Dr. Branford Beville, Deputy Director, Drake, UCC. Professor Dorcas Obriyeboa, Deputy Director, Drake, UCC. Professor Miracle Dixon Ochre, Directorate of Academic Planning and Quality Assurance, representing the Director of DAPCA. Please, with a hand of applause. On this note, we wish to acknowledge all heads of department, all faculty members who are present with us. We have the President, GRASAC UCC and GRASAC student. Please let's acknowledge all of them with a hand of applause. I will return to do more acknowledgement on our list, but at the moment we want to invite the chair for today's event, Professor Gallion, to give his concluding remarks with a hand of applause, please. So we have just been prompted, of course this is a public lecture, that we interrogate the subject a bit. That's what academic communities do. We want to come to you to pick a few questions and then we'll take the chair's concluding remarks. For the purposes of camera work as we did yesterday, so we could have good lighting, if we could have you come closer. If we could have you come closer, then we could interrogate the subject closely before we take other areas that the dignitaries have penned down, please. Okay. All right, so I would attempt to do a brief summary. Yes, we have you, madam, please. So let's march. If you have yours, you wouldn't want to wait until the first person is done. Thank you very much. We have the yesterday's moderator also coming up. We can have a few of you, about 5, and then we'll be done to take the concluding remarks. Madam, please come here. So you introduce yourself and then briefly you put across your question.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Okay, my name is Dr. Sabaina Apia Boateng. I'm with the Department of Peace Studies, School for Development Studies here in UCC. Thank you very much, Professor Speaker, for the wonderful presentation given unto us. What baffles my mind and what I want to draw attention to is the fact that during some of these applications, the expectations of the funder is so high that most of the time they are looking out for people with very rich experiences who have won some previous grants and have made a name. Now I am just concerned about that person who has just registered a research consortium and is founding the foundation at the very beginning. What happens to these smaller units who are also making that effort to get to the high? If most of the time what the funders is looking out for is rich experiences, the previous research awards or grants received, and so on and so forth. So how can we pick on these small ones such that they can also make the name that the big ones have made? Thank you.
My name is Michael Oseyedu, Department of Crop Science. Thank you very much, Professor. As always, that was very insightful. I enjoyed it. There was one thing that you said getting to the end that I found a bit intriguing, that there are a lot of money sitting out there that we need to go and access, but unfortunately, African scientists have not always gone for these monies. And I wondered, because all this while I've been thinking rather that there aren't a lot of money for research for us. So I was a bit, it was intriguing for me to learn that actually there was a lot of money So my question is quite simple. In your experience, could you highlight a few of the reasons why there is money, but Africans have not been able to access? Is it that we don't have the expertise, or is it just fear of failing? In your experience, what has been some of the reasons why we refuse to go look for these monies? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Aryeetey, for your insightful lecture. My name is Israel Agosar. I'm with the Department of Molecular Biology and Biotech, UCC. So I have a quick question about whether you think there could be a tension between a push for more investment into basic research versus applied research in African context. Because as we push for the formation of National Research Fund, African governments are always going to look to what they can realize quickly from their investment as opposed to basic research, which no one really knows for sure what the outcome is. And so, for example, if you take the research that led to the development of COVID-19 vaccines, for example, nobody knew what it was for. And the guys who were performing those research were actually fired because they thought they were unproductive, talking about those guys from the University of Pennsylvania. So is there a framework that can allow us to push hard for the government to also think that basic research is as important as applied research? I would like to have your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I guess these areas would further engage and stimulate some thoughts before we take leave. Would want to call on Professor Aryeetey to respond to these.
Thank you very much for 3 very interesting questions. The first was to do with how to support the smaller, early starting research groups who do not have any track record to stand on, and so on. Yeah, that question really helps us to understand the structure of our universities. In our universities, you will find that many of those with the well-established track records are people that I described in my presentation. They've been part of various clinical trials for many years. They've been part of various global networks, playing different types of roles for many years. And then you have this new group of people, recent PhD graduates and so on, for our universities, who have not been involved in any of these ones. What I see as the way forward, and that's also the way that I know, is research development is through mentorship and apprenticeship. So the new person coming in, that new young person, should have been groomed, mentored in that system. You know, so I see around me at Legon, I see young people who want to break out on their own right from the beginning. No, sometimes they get lucky and they are able to make it, but most times they will face that head on. So my suggestion would be form research consortia in which they are old, experienced people blended with the young. Most of the work will be done by the young people. That's how it is everywhere in the world. Most of the work will be done by the young people. You need the experience and the CV, the track record of the old man or woman to give. When you decide that, oh, for these old men, they are just coming to take money from us, and it doesn't work. So how do you build teams? So with time, the old will phase out, and then you, the young one of today, will become the old one of tomorrow. So there's always some mentorship taking place. When you go to Europe, that's how you see it. Every PhD, every professor has his own group of people around him or her. They are his students. They do all the running. They do all the work, all the publications. They have names on it. With time, after about 10 years, the old man disappears. And then there's a new old man. And there's a new old man, or increasingly a new old woman. But here, everybody wants to be champion in day one. So let us think about how to mentor young people, support them, so that in another 10 years, they will be the leaders. I hope you understand. I hope it works for you. Then I said that, yeah, there's a lot of money, and I made specific reference to the European Union. The European Union being the entity that has a lot of money. I mean, in the past, let's say about before COVID, the UK used to be the one that led a lot of the research a lot of support for development research. Today, it is no longer that. The European Union does. When you go to the website of the European Union, you will find information about the Erasmus initiative. You will find information about various other things. I don't know if you are familiar with Arise. Arise is a support for African research innovation, which is administered through the African Academy of Sciences, where they give about the equivalent of 500,000 euros per grant. And in each country, there is at least one Arise project. The calls are issued every 2 or 3 years. And so what is remarkable is Arise was introduced largely because there were very few Africans directly vying for European Union grants. So go to the European Union website, look for these research possibilities, and then you will find that there are many things that you don't require you to have an European partner to be able to access. They don't require you. It's simply a matter, of course, but the paperwork that goes with it is enormous. That's why the research office here has to take the lead. You've been part of discussions we've had with the European Union. So the whole idea is to train at each university somebody who is quite agile in maneuvering the European Union system in order to help people to find their grants. The last question was about basic research versus applied research. Is there a framework? No, there isn't a framework. But you need both. It's a matter of a nation making a determination of how much do we want to put into this, or how much do we want to put into that. In my view, and from my experience, whether basic research is supported or applied research is supported, it's all driven by how exciting it is. You know, so if I'm a potential funder, and you are basically an entomologist who wants to provide me with an opportunity to think about something exciting in entomology, I will look at it if it is exciting, if it forces me to think beyond my immediate confines. Obviously, if you are talking about something that is excites only you, why should I take a risk? Basic science is always high risk, or it's usually high risk. So it's for the scientists to assure me as a funder that, yes, it's a high risk, but the returns can be huge. That's what we often do not. Sometimes as scientists, we don't see that it's our job to make a case. We think that because we are asking for something and we thought about something that's exciting to us, everybody else will be excited. No. It is easy for me to see if the clinical trial results show that the efficacy of a particular vaccine is about 70%. It's easy for me to see that, yeah, and then we put money into it. But where there's no such information, a lot depends on how exciting you make me feel about the work that you want to do. There is no framework. Universities have a responsibility to encourage both types of research. And that the way you do it is encourage your basic scientists to work with the applied scientists. Not think about the olden days where it was about who was a better scientist. Good science is good science. Good science will always triumph over bad science. Of course, sometimes bad science will get away, but it will always be found out. So let's think about good science as opposed to basic versus applied. Thank you.
Emeritus Professor Aryeetey, thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to do a few acknowledgement of some of our dignitaries that are yet to be acknowledged. We have with us Professor Anochi Adam, the Provost of Code UCC. Please, with a hand of applause. Prof, can you give us a wave? Ah, I see you. Thank you very much. We have Professor Michael Edu, Head of Department Crop Science, UCC. Thank you very much, Michael. Professor Ernest, Project Lead for Food Fraud and Agri-Input Integrity, IEA. Please, with a hand of applause. Thank you. We also have a student from the university, Practice SHS, and your teachers. You're welcome. You joined us quite early, and we sincerely appreciate that. We have Professor Bazani Joseph, Deputy Director of Human Resources, UDS. Please, with a hand of applause, let's acknowledge him. Mrs. Eunice Eduboahin, KNUST Office of Grant and Research, representing her director, has also joined us. Thank you very much. And of course, her director is Professor Philip Nchi. We appreciate him very much. We have Nana Kojo Dadzi, also from KNUST. We have Mr. Ernest Minter, Branch Manager, Zenith Bank, who has joined us, sir. Special thank you. Tomorrow we would have the award session, and ahead of tomorrow, we have a major presenter who will be doing a presentation to the grant winners. Mr. Justice Odoikwe Odoi, World Bank, has joined us. Please, if you can give us a wave so we can acknowledge you properly. You're most welcome, sir. We appreciate your presence here. So a few summaries. We want to be doing that before the chair concludes with his concluding remarks. Professor Aryeetey has touched on diverse areas of research. He's spoken about the African universities and the transitioning beyond teaching-centric modules to achieve global competitiveness that is being exemplified by the rising research metrics in the region. And so to sustain this momentum, key strategies are being explored. He mentioned that cultivating PhD opportunities for Ghanaian scholars, facilitating their return to contribute to national development, advancing SDG-focused research, leveraging funding opportunities and allocating institutional resources, Arua's catalytic role in driving change through existing partnerships, scouting opportunities and coalition building with research universities and organizations to enhance the research ecosystem. Finally, he speaks about other initiatives that are being explored with the aim to solidify Africa's position in the global research landscape. And I believe I've been a good student by taking these brief summaries. Let's welcome the chair, Professor Gallion, to conclude the remarks for us.
Thank you, MC. The MC has done the summary, so. Those who sat near me saw me taking copious notes. I was called last night to represent the Pro Vice Chancellor by chairing this function. And so I took notes for myself. So all of us listened, and we all listened as audience or students of Prof. Aryeetey. So I expected that all of us would make notes. Fortunately for us, the MC has made some summaries for us. But my notes was targeting at UCC and UCC management and Drake. Our speaker today, when I started, I said he will give us ideas as he has been giving, and he has given us several ideas. Fortunately, Drake and their lieutenants are here. I think we should incorporate that into our next research agenda. The last time I posted something on research, I talked about we coming together and having multidisciplinary research where everybody is involved. And then we have big research projects and everybody falls into one so that we can cover the science, the social science, the education, and whatever about that research so that we can make impact. And today, Prof. Aryeetey has emphasized that. He has given us the differences between research in the African environment and elsewhere, and so we should take note of that. Even though universities produce about 90% of researches, the challenges is the politician, the criticisms of our research, but that should not discourage us from doing that. He has acknowledged that African universities have improved in their research activities, quality research, but then expenditure for research compared to even the AU target of 1% is less than 50% of that. And so that I'll be informing university management, maybe they can do something about it. Then the MC talked about the PhDs, people returning and not getting. There are people who have applied for lectureship positions. You will interact with them, see that they are good. Then you send it upstairs. Then they tell you no clearance. And so the brain drain that he's talked about, we are encouraging it. If I have a PhD and I want to come home and I'm not getting space and I get space somewhere, I will go there because man must survive. We should emphasize on multidisciplinary research, and then he has also praised us. Since the last time he gave us the talk, we were nowhere in the ladder. Now we have climbed that ladder, and then Prof. Aryeetey is happy with us, but he has warned us. How do we sustain it? So we have to work hard to sustain that. I'm happy he talked about our RGF. How much is our RGF going into research? So I'm sure the director of Drake will do a position paper for university management to look at it. I will be informing the Pro-Vice Chancellor about it too. Our research, when we are conducting research, how do we align them with the Sustainable Development Goals? Maybe sometimes we miss out on some of the funding because we don't link our proposals to the Sustainable Development Goals. So, and even if we link them, do we make them clear? So let us try and do that. Link them, make them clear, and then talk like a marketer, not like social scientists or natural scientists. We need to market ourselves. And I think we have done well to be able to market ourselves, particularly 4 consecutive years we have been able to do something. We were nowhere and we came up, so we should be able to market ourselves properly. He has also given us things that Arua is doing, and he has been in the forefront of Arua activities and whatnot. So The slides are there, but what I want to talk about is the creation of knowledge clusters, collaboration, and interdisciplinary research, which we also need to do. That is why we need to have research teams on UCC campus. We are doing well. Now, ESICO has stood out because they have come together with, and that's a team that has worked, and now we are all in such a way that all of us can find some niches there to operate. But if we have many more research teams, maybe we'll get many more centers of excellence, and then we can drop everybody in and conduct research that will be meaningful to the farmer, to the patient in the hospital, and even to ourselves and maybe the world. The other initiatives, I think university management and maybe VCG, I don't know, VCG should be pushing for the National Research Councils and then ensure that our institutions working on promoting research are strengthened to advance institutional research. And I think that's where we should be thinking about what percentage of our IGF should go into research funding. I've seen some of the grants that people are going to receive tomorrow. 18,000 Ghana cedis. If you divide it by 50, and now that's about $1,000. And then $1,000, you want me to do a quality paper and put it in a quality journal. I am wondering what data you will collect and get that. And so we can't improve upon these awards, get teams and give them big money so that they can work on projects that will not only benefit our promotion, but also benefit the society. And I think that is where the channeling of some of our IGF into research would help us to achieve that. Prof. Aryeetey also informed us to leverage networks for research management for capacity building and professionalization. And I think these are food for thought for us. The last time we did well. I hope the next time we are inviting him, even if he's not coming to give us some more ideas, we should be inviting him to come and see what we have done so that we can do the same. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am happy again that I was asked to come and chair. The last time I was a student listening to him, and then after he finished, it was Prof. and I who saw him walking alone, and then we decided to go and give him company. Yeah, so today he's not alone. When he was coming, the director of Drake said they were following us, so we took the lead. Then when we got to the place, we were entering the foyer, and then director of Drake called us again. We should wait and come with Prof. Aryeetey. And then they put the registrar to sit by me to be sure I am here. So, Prof. Aryeetey, I'll be telling the Pro-Vice Chancellor that you have given us more ideas. And I have promised you that by the next time you are coming to audit what we have done. So, thank you very much, and wish us all the best.
Professor Galleon, grateful for your concluding remarks. Professor Emeritus Aryeetey, the University of Cape Coast especially would want to express its sincerest appreciation to you for the honor done us by expressing these years of wealth experience with us. We have a gift for you. it's my pleasure to call on Professor Nelson Bois and of course Mr. Gideon Abikwe Esquire to do this presentation. Please, for the purposes of camera work, if you can just stand in front here, just here, please. For the cameras, if you can come in front here, thank you. The citation reads, Appreciation, Professor Ernest Aryeetey, former Secretary General, Africa Research Universities Alliance, Arua, and former Vice-Chancellor, University of Ghana. The management of the University of Cape Coast expresses its profound gratitude to you for your insightful and thought-provoking public lecture on the topic Funding of Research for Sustainable Development in Ghana. The role of universities, Arua, and regional funding bodies on the occasion of the first Research and Innovation Week and 9th Research Awards and Grant Ceremony at the University of Cape Coast. Sir, thank you. Gentlemen, you have to look at the camera for photos. You will look at the cameras. Prof, you will look at the cameras. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Aryeetey. Congratulations, and we appreciate this sincerely. Before we do the final prayer, a few acknowledgements here. We have also been joined by Professor Emmanuel Kofi Jima from the Faculty of Education Foundations. Prof, thank you. Thank you very much. We have Mr. Isaac Elliott Miraku, College Registrar, Kant Nyeku. Thank you. Say Nyeku, thank you. And then Mr. Hesse, College Registrar, Code. Mr. Hesse, where are you? Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, all too soon, we have to be ending the day so we could prepare for tomorrow. We're doing the closing prayer. It's my privilege once again to call Reverend Dr. Patrick Kwampa to do that for us, please. I really don't know, when programs are there dying embers, people can hardly clap. Are you clapping? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe you would like to rise for the closing prayer. Shall we pray? God Almighty, we thank you for a very successful program. We thank you for your presence, and we thank you for the lives of all the dignitaries that were here present, that graced the occasion. We thank you for the lives of all the functionaries that performed during the program. We commit tomorrow's program into your hands. May you make it a success, and we commit our departure into your hands. And may you dispatch us with your blessings. This we pray in the name of Christ Jesus our Lord with thanksgiving. Amen.
Please take your seat briefly for this announcement. Take your seat briefly. So, for announcement, the exhibition ends today. If you haven't been to the exhibition center, you want to do that today. And so on that note, this is actually an announcement of appreciation. We want to recognize and appreciate all college and directorate representatives who made the exhibition happen, who worked tirelessly to make the entire space colorful and engaging. We are very, very grateful. Tomorrow, as you have your agenda, as day 4 will be the 9th Research Awards and Grant Ceremony. There will be the presentation of awards and special recognition. We wouldn't want you to miss that. For the past few days, we have, in as much as you have attended massively, we want to really respect the time. Our event commences exactly 10 a.m., so we want to ensure that latest by 9:30 a.m. we are all seated. Tomorrow's ceremony will take place right here, and so latest by 9:30 we would all be seated to witness all the presentations and acknowledgements that will be happening. On that note, I want to appreciate all of you for your time and for making today's public lecture engaging. The event was streamed live on ATL platform, so you can go on the YouTube page or the Facebook page and take the food for thought that you may have missed. Once again, special thanks to all of you. We would kindly request our dignitaries to take a photo. You would kindly stay because all the VIPs that joined and we acknowledge would also join them to take the photo. But for now, the dignitaries on the table will take a photo with our very special guest. We would have the backdrop as our background. Photographers, would you please get closer so you could guide them? Thank you. You are taking photos and you are being clapped for. Please clap. Photographers, are you getting closer or this is okay? Okay. Gentlemen, can we get you push the table a bit for us? The ladies, we don't mind doing that though, but if you want to do it, that would be kind. Thank you. Sounds, let's have music.